I cannot believe there's not enough spiritual content for expectant fathers.
Yeah.
Hey, my name's Ashford Sonii and I'm with Devotional Dad. On this YouTube channel, I'm bringing an abundance of dad chats, counsel for you and I to be able to pull from for our very own lives. In this video, I've had the honor of sharing my conversation with Jonathan Pitts. Jonathan Pitts is a dad, author, pastor, speaker. He's also president and co-founder of For Girls Like You. He's a dad, he's a husband, and he's very candid about his experiences of expectant fatherhood. All right, here's my conversation with Jonathan Pitts.
You know, my favorite moment as a father, anytime I see my kids walking in the gifting that God has given them. So it could be like one of my daughters in a play, like one of my daughters just did a play. Yeah. One of my daughters on a soccer field, like whenever they're walking in their gifting, like it's like this moment of me realizing, oh my gosh, everything that I've done has been helping God prepare them for what they're going to do. And so, yeah, it's not like, for me, it's not like this birthday party or this moment. It's more like just watching my kids walk in what God's called them to do. What's funny is this is a great story, but it's one that probably marks more men than not, which is I wasn't indifferent, but I wasn't as emotionally connected to what was happening as my wife was. So I was working for a company. I was in college. Actually, I graduated from college. We were married, and I was working for the company that I worked for in college. So I kept working for them for a little bit longer. Yeah. And we had a men's golf league. So I was playing that men's golf league. It was like a Thursday night, I think it was. And my wife just calls me and she goes, I'm literally about to hit a shot. She calls me and she's like, hey, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm golfing. What's going on? She's like, just stop what you're doing for a second. I'm like, okay. And she goes, I'm pregnant. And I was like, what? And, I had like a minute where we're like flipping out. Like, I can't believe this. Like, this is crazy. And then I was like, all right, well, I'll see when I get home. And she was like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I'm in the middle of this golf round. I'll see when I get home. Right. And so we laughed about it for many years. But like, for me, it was like, okay, it's something that happened. I'm excited. But I don't think I realized the impact of that moment on the rest of my life and how it was going to change everything. The first moment would be my first daughter. I can't remember how pregnant Winter was, but she was no more than probably 3 or 4 months. Mm-hmm. We're getting ready for church on a Sunday, and I was getting dressed in the bedroom, and all of a sudden Winter came in the bedroom, and she just goes, oh my gosh, I can't see. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she could basically see the floor, but she couldn't see like from her middle of her eyeball and up. She had vision down, but not up. Mm-hmm. And we freaked out. She couldn't see. It must have been like, I don't know, maybe 2 minutes where she couldn't see anything below here. And anyway, we ended up going to the emergency room. It turned out she had a blood clot pass through her eye. And what's really beautiful about that moment is because we went to the hospital, they sent us for blood work. She had blood work done, and we'd find out within like a week that she had what's called factor V Leiden, which is a blood clotting disorder. And because she has this blood clotting disorder, they decided, oh, we're going to put you on Lovenox, which is a blood thinner. And so for her pregnancy with Alina, she was on this blood thinner. She gave herself a shot every 12 hours, twice a day for, how many months left that was, and for every other child she'd have, because this blood thinner was the only thing that would likely stop a blood clot from passing through her placenta and killing the baby. See, women normally find out they have factor V Leiden, which is basically thicker blood than most other people, because they have a blood clot pass through the placenta and they have a miscarriage. Right. And so that would be the first moment, because I saw God's kindness in allowing that to happen, and the fragility of life, The second would be similar with our third and fourth babies. And this is where like prayer is such a big deal in pregnancy, because it is so fragile. That's the thing I would say men can do the most in their pregnancy is pray for their wife and pray for their baby. Yeah. So with my third and fourth, we went to the doctor. Winter did a pregnancy test, found out she was pregnant. And when she found out she was pregnant, we go to the doctor, and the doctor's like, hey, I don't see a heartbeat. I actually don't even see the fetal stem. And she was like, it turns out you might have a tubal pregnancy. So come back in a week's time. And we actually left on vacation, and then we're just nervous and scared, but we're praying and we're trusting God. And so we pull back into the doctor's office after vacation that next week. I stay in the car. She goes inside. So my other two girls are in the car with me, sleeping. Yeah. And she comes out, and I look in the rearview mirror, the passenger mirror, and I see her walking up crying. And I don't know to this day how I knew, but I just go, we're having twins. She busted out crying, and I was crying, but we were crying for different reasons. I was crying because I was happy. She was crying because she's like, I have no idea how I'm going to do this. My body, I'm tiny, all that. So those are two moments, because you realize the fragility of life, but you realize God's goodness. God's so good that even in the hard, he will comfort you. But in the good, like when you see like, wow, he saved my baby, like it's pretty amazing. Yeah, I mean, I would say yes, absolutely. There's spiritual warfare, and I think the enemy is doing all he can to get the expectant dad to be as indifferent and dismissive of what's happening as possible. And that could be through being dismissive of his spouse, or if he's not married, his baby mama, or his like that. When you look at the breakdown of the family, it's one of the worst things that happened. It's happened in any country, specifically ours. And the goal of the enemy is trying to get the man to be indifferent, and that's indifferent towards his wife, but ultimately that makes him indifferent towards his child. Mm-hmm. And what's really beautiful is God's wired women to help men not be indifferent, which is what my wife was doing. My late wife now, she was like, "Are you kidding me?" Like it wasn't even acceptable that I would be indifferent towards what was happening. So wow. I would say indifference through indifference to your spouse and their needs in that season. And then just indifference towards your own spiritual growth during that time, because what that moment should have told me is, okay, you've got 9 months to prepare yourself for this.
Right.
And I can honestly tell you in those 9 months, I mean, I was a godly young man, but I was immature, and I wasn't in my mind thinking, okay, prepare for fathering. Yeah. I knew God would prepare me. So there was a level of status quo that I was okay with, or just doing the least, and still, expecting I was going to be a great dad. I wasn't worried about that. Like I just but I wasn't thinking, use these 9 months as moments to press into growing in godliness and growing as a husband and growing as a father. I didn't think about it like that. And then in ways I think about it now. I think a man's battle is he's always battling to be checked into his wife, checked into his children, and checked into what God is doing. And it's easy for men to be focused on work or focused on a hobby. For me, it was golf. Or to be focused on all these outside things that have nothing to do with the main thing. And the main thing is the nucleus of your family. And so I would tell my younger self, use this expectant period as an opportunity to press in as much as you can, to discipline yourself for the purpose of godliness, as that Paul would tell Timothy. Discipline yourself for the purpose of godliness. Discipline yourself to check in and be there for your spouse, emotionally and physically, and to begin being there for your child, emotionally and physically, and ultimately spiritually. Mm-hmm. And I would say that expectant time period is a time period where it's pretty easy to do, because to be there for your wife is to be understanding, to be generous with your time and with your patience with her as she's going through hormonal changes, to help out, like not let her carry anything, not let her walk up steps with something. Like it's a real cool opportunity to be available. And it only how do I say this? The bar will only go up as your marriage gets more mature, as you have more children, as your child gets older. What it's going to take for you to be checked in and disciplined, it only becomes more. It's more responsibility. It's more dependence on God and prayer. Like, so learning now in this season where it's easy, how to actually discipline yourself for the purpose of godliness when it gets harder. Yeah, the prayers that are required now are much more, they're not more complex, but the needs are more complex than they've ever been. Right. And regardless, you could have a 50-year healthy marriage and a healthy child, 5 healthy children, but your prayer needs and your reliance on God is only going to need to go up. And your discipline is going to need to go up as well. So discipline yourself now while things are easy. when you're lifting weights, if you start with 10 pounds on each side, that's 1,000% easier than starting with 200 pounds on each side or 100 pounds on each side. So let's start while it's much easier to practice.
Expectant fatherhood is one of those seasons where a guy can really see God like he's never seen him before, but it's also a pretty nuanced season that not a lot of people talk about spiritually. So I just appreciate your perspective.
I agree with you 1,000%. Like, there's such an opportunity in expectancy to be expectant, that God wants to do something in you as well. And so I'll be praying for you as you consider what God has for you, and happy to be as helpful as I can.
All right, that was my conversation with dad, author, pastor, speaker, Jonathan Pitts. Check out his website at jonathanpitts.net. See what he's written. Check out his podcast. I truly believe you'll learn so much from his ministry. If you're an expectant father, or even a new father, or a father in general, this journey can be tough, but man, I believe in you, and most importantly, God believes in you. So my hope is that Devotional Dad will give you those biblically saturated, practical pieces of information that help guide you along this new journey. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe. And if you know a dad, expectant dad, soon to be dad, aspiring dad, make sure to share this channel. All right, until the next video, I'll see you soon.